In this video, I'm going to show you how to create 3D assets that you can place on your own website design. Additionally, I've gone ahead and remade all the popular logos like React, Angular, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and many more, which you can access in the link below if you want to start adding these directly to your own website. I'll do this video in two parts. The very first part will show you just how easy it is to add in 3D logos to your own portfolio or website design. The second part will be in Spline Design, where Garrett will actually take you through the process of creating them. This part is actually a little bit longer, but it's definitely worth learning and doing if you want to start adding 3D elements to pages. Let's begin. I'm here inside of Wix Studio, and all I have to do to get this 3D HTML logo in here is throw in this bit of code in an iframe. Seems pretty easy, but to get this, I have to head to Spline Design, log in, select one of the HTML logos I was creating in 3D, head over here to Export, and head to Viewer. Here, I'll get these two lines that I can copy over and then paste into here. And that's pretty much it. These ones here, I've exported as GIFs just because they're a bit smaller and I didn't want to use iframes. But there's a lot of customization you can do here. You can even export them for things like the Vision Pro or as an image or even straight into things like Three.js or React. If you want to grab your favorite one and simply use it for your website, I've created a bundle you can download on Gumroad, which I'll link in the description. Otherwise, let's take a look at how to create one.
Today we're going to be modeling a 3D HTML logo in Spline using box modeling, shading, and animation, and then we'll show you how to upload it onto a website. Okay, so we open up Spline and we head over to the top right over here to start a new file. And once that's open, we're just going to delete the default cube because we don't need that. We can keep the light in there. And I've downloaded the HTML logo to use as reference in 2D. And if you give it a quick rotate, you can see here. And we want to make sure we're labeling everything as we go, just so it doesn't get a bit confusing at the end when you've got 10 cubes and no idea which cube is which. So we'll put here reference image in the reference image in the left-hand side here, and then we'll add our first cube. So we're going to start by modeling the outline of the HTML logo, just the border of the shield, label it border. All right, and then to edit the cube, we're just going to click Smooth and Edit on the right-hand side here. We don't want these 8 vertices, so back out of that and delete them all. We don't want any subdivision because we're doing nice clean lines. And then we're just going to move the cube with the vertex selection up the top selected. There's no definition on the left-hand side of the actual logo itself, so we're just going to move it over to the right where we can actually see the size of things. And here we're just making sure the cube fits perfectly into the border and moving it across here to the end point of the logo where it cuts and across to the left here, just following along the shape. And then, all right, and then we just want to keep it as symmetrical as possible for now. So we're going to adjust this one, although we will come back to it because we can't quite see what we're doing with the way the logo doesn't have any color contrast between the two shapes. If you rotate slightly here, you can see the 3D edge of it, the other surface, and we can click the extrude button and pull it along to get the other edge of the border. We're just going to line up the vertices to make sure that they are following the logo again, and that's perfect. And then we'll just come down to this face, rotate slightly, grab the extrude tool again, and pull it down. Now this will pull basically straight along the normals, so the direction that the face is facing. We just have to switch back to vertice movement and pull it across here and line it up again. And we're just going to do that all the way along the border, just making sure to be as accurate as possible as we go along the shape. The more accurate you are now, the easier it is to work with later and the better it looks in the finished product. Now we've lined that up, we're just going to rotate again, grab the extrusion tool and bring it down to the edge of the border. And then we will extrude the vertices down just to make sure that they are as perfect as possible. Bring that one down as well. Rotate around once that's perfectly lined up. And then we rotate again, grab this face with the extrude tool, and pull it out until the edge of the next bend in the shape of the model. Bring it down so you've got it onto the edge. Make sure your lines are clean. Back to vertex selection, grab that top vertice, line her up, grab the bottom vertice and bring it over. Make sure you're not behind the menu, otherwise you can't select it. And then pull it over, and here we go. And now that we have that half done, we run into the same problem where we cannot see the definition between the two edges of the model itself, of the logo. So we're just going to pull it across for now to a general spot, and then we need to rotate the logo just to make it easier to see where the edges of the logo are. So we give that a quick 180, get as close as possible. You can also do this in the top right hand corner if you just type in 180 into the Y rotation. It would do it as well. And it's only visible on one side because our current visibility selection is front only. We just want to click both. And that makes it visible on both the front and the back because we're looking at the back now. And then go back to vertex selection, and now we can line them up. We can see where we are. And if you click the right controls, it doesn't rotate on you like that. And then bring the vertices up, line them up perfectly. And now we can continue as we were. Just rotate again, grab the last face here, pull it across with the correct control for extrusion, and line up your vertices again. If you switch to vertex selection rather than face selection, it's a little bit easier to get a finer control of the actual shape itself. And now our final face, we can just pull this up one last time. It's easiest to do front on. If you are in any kind of rotation mode, you'll get some weird angles. We just want it to be flat and as close to the logo as possible at present. And then our final adjustment, we just pull this up the rest of the way with vertex selection. We just want to keep the outer edge of the model as accurate as possible to the logo. The inner vertices don't really have to be quite so clean because they're going to overlap. We just want to make sure, and if we rotate here, we can see that there's no gaps between the two edges, so it's nice and smooth. And that's the border done. You can see front and back. Looks good. And then we're going to select the loop tool, which creates a edge and 4 vertices within the shape itself with one click. And that gives us a nice line right down the center where we can edit the shape later. Fix the logo back to front on, and we'll start modeling the inside. At this stage, Spline does not offer UV editing, so we have to model the inside in multiple pieces so that we can have 2 separate colors in the model itself. So we're going to add one half of the border, remove the extra corners and the subdivision, because if you leave those in, again, you end up with really messy topology. Make sure you're in vertex selection and not edge selection, otherwise you end up with funky shapes. And we're just going to drag this across to the halfway mark, bring it up to the top, clip it into the top so it's a nice smooth transition between the edges, and bring her down to the center. And then we'll just line up the rest of the shape. Get the vertices close to where you need them again. And perfect. And now to clean up the shape, we just rotate to the side view using the widget down the bottom and extrude it in to make it a bit thinner. And then go back to front view using the widget down the bottom, quick rotate to get a good view on it. And we're just gonna slide it back to the back of the shield. And then to get a better view on the shape, we can move the logo back out. And then we switch to top view and you can see exactly where it is on the Z axis. pull it forwards a little bit just so it's lined up nicely. And it's looking a little bit thin, so we'll just switch back to Edit Mesh, Face Selection, and pull it forwards. About there looks good. Have a look around. Yep, perfect. And then to do the other side of the background of the logo, we just go back to Object Selection Mode, quick Control-C, Control-V. If you look in the top left, you can see Cube and Cube 2 now. And then in the rotation on the right-hand side, we just flip that to 180. And now we've got the other side. We just need to line it up. We'll just quickly eyeball it in the 3D space, pull it back. It's a bit difficult to get accurate doing it this way. So if we grab the coordinates from the current Cube 1 and paste them into Cube 2, we can get it exactly where we want it. So the X and the Y. Because it's been flipped, the Z-axis is not going to be identical because the origin point is not dead center on the object. So if you look here, it's not giving us what we need. So we're just going to have to eyeball the Z-axis. We'll just get it as close as we can because we're going to edit the shape later anyways, so it doesn't really matter too much here. Make sure there's no gaps. We can see the logo through it currently. So we're just going to move it across until the inner border lines up. And then there's a gap on the left hand. And now I've noticed a gap on the right hand side. So we're just going to quickly touch that up. Pulling it across, it can clip into the border and that'll give us a smooth transition. And that side's looking good. So we go back to Object Selection, select the other mesh, smooth and edit, and then back to vertex selection. And that little gray dot there just moves it in any direction without clipping to a axis. And make sure both sides are visible. So in visibility on the right hand side, switch to both, otherwise the back is invisible. And now we have our basic shape. So to get it to a nice shield shape, get that feeling going, we can grab these two pairs of vertices just on the front of the face. We do not want the back vertices because we want the back to be flat still. Go top view so you can see what we're doing and just pull it forwards. And to keep it symmetrical, if we grab both the left and the right hand side here to tidy it up, we want to make sure we've got top and bottom here, we can smooth out that shape. Get some dimensionality because this is meant to be a 3D object, so giving it some more shape always makes it look a little bit nicer in the 3D space. And just pull those forwards. Oh, we missed another vertice. Yeah, that looks like we've got all of them. And back to top view here and pull her forwards, getting the lines as smooth as possible. And it looks like we've still missed a couple. So bottom view, grab just the ones we missed and pull them forwards. Do it on both sides here and perfect. We've got a nice shield. Just cleaning them up a little bit. It looks like we missed more again. There we go. All right, and I like to just give everything a quick 360 rotate in a bunch of different directions so we can see how things are looking. Give it an edit. We've noticed there's a little gap in the border. So we'll just pull it forwards a touch to clean that up. And that looks smooth. Perfect. So now we can go back into Edit Mesh, Edge Selection this time, and we're going to grab that inner edge and just pull it forwards so it matches the shape of the border. And we'll do that on both sides, getting it as close as possible to keep it clean. Perfect. Now that we've done that, we just give it a quick 360 rotate to see how everything looks. Go back to Object Selection, and that's our background done. Beautiful. Just making sure we're happy with everything, and once we are, we can go ahead and pull the logo forwards back again for our reference, because we're going to do the 5. If you type 0 into the coordinates, it just puts it straight back to the center. We don't want to move the main mesh because that makes everything a little bit harder when it's not dead on 0, 0, 0. So we're just going to pull the logo forward instead. And then once again, we just add in a cube, remove all of the extra corners, go to smooth and edit, remove the bevel. We want nice clean lines. Back to vertex selection, line it up to the shape, top and bottom, and then pulling it across, making sure everything is as neat as possible, getting it as perfect to the logo itself, just so it's nice and clean. Pull it across to the left here, still just tracing the logo, and give it a rotate, and we can see the face to use the extrude tool, and extrude out to the left-hand side. Back to vertex selection, tidy up the corners. And if you notice, we stop before the transition to the downward edge. This is what gives us the extra face to use. So here we'll stop on the edge there. And that way, there's a nice clean cut where we need to start the next extrusion to follow along the shape. So rotate here again, pull her down. Front view, of course, keeps it easy to see what you're doing. Line them up. And perfect. And then we're just going to continue along as we have been for the rest of the 5, just extruding and lining up the vertices, stopping at each edge of the shape so that we can pull a new face down in the direction we need to go. All right, and once that's done, we can just give the 5 a quick bit of shape. So we'll add a loop cut up the top and a loop cut down the middle. And we just want to line them up with the center of the logo. And then we can give the 5 the same shape as the shield so it looks nice within the 3D space. So we'll just drag this across to the center of the logo where you can see the color shift right about there. The bottom one looks good, so we'll just move to this next level here. Line her up, and perfect. This one's slightly off. Move her over. And that looks good. So now we go to edge selection, select our 3 edges, go top view, and pull them forwards the exact same way we did with the shield. And then front view, and we're just going to do the same on the left here. Although we do need to line up these vertices first so that they're vertical. If they're on an angle like that, we'd end up with some odd shapes. This way, it is nice and clean. So we just want to slide it along without changing the actual edge of the line. And there, it's still in line with the 5 on the logo. And we'll do the same on this side because we're just going to grab these 2 as well. And this last one here. And we'll just tidy up this last one here, bringing it over to the right until you can kind of see that the line's not too pixelated. It means it's closer to vertical. Doesn't need to be perfect. No one's going to be looking at it quite this close, but it's easier for us to see if you zoom in. This is accurate to the logo, but it's not vertical, so we'll just pull it over a little bit to get it a bit nicer for us to work with. Grab the 3 edges that we need and do the same on the other side. And then we'll just add a loop cut using the loop cut tool here at the top, just so we've got another pair of vertices that line up with all the rest. Get it as close to vertical as possible. If we can select it, it's easier if you zoom in and slide it across. Just making sure it's in line with all the other vertices. And then we'll select using the edge selection tool everything in that vertical line on both sides, just so we can tidy up the shape itself. And then we go from the top view and pull it forwards. And you'll notice the top was already a nice shape, so we'll just Control Z that, unselect it, and pull the rest forwards to match. Now everything is perfectly in line with the rest of the shield. That looks good. Back to object selection mode, and we can slide the logo back so we can see what we're doing, and clip the 5 into the back of the shield until it sits nicely. And that looks great. Give it a quick 360 to make sure everything looks good. If you switch to perspective mode with the camera, it's a bit easier to see the actual 3D shape, because orthographic keeps it flat as if it's 2D, regardless of the angle you're looking at it. This looks good in perspective as well. So now we'll just go to the materials, do some texturing. So I've got the logo here. We just open it with any photo editor. We've used Affinity Photo here. And if we use the eyedropper tool, we can get the exact hex code of the color that the logo uses. Copy that, paste it into the color code here, and perfect. Just do the same with the background. This one happens to be the exact same color in the hex code, paste there. And on the right hand side is where we've got the other orange color, and this is why we have modeled it in 2 parts, because we are unable to do 2 separate colors in Spline at present. So we paste the new color into that 3rd background and set the 5 to white. Now the background on the left is looking a little bit dark, so we'll just change the lighting to bring it up in line, other direction, with the border. That's looking dark too, so we'll just do the same here. And then just to make it a bit more even, we'll darken up the border. And that looks good. That's your texturing done. Easy. Just delete the reference since it is done being modeled and colored. Now that that's done, you might notice I forgot to label everything. So before we copy paste to get the back side, we're just going to tidy up the scene with some labels. We've got the inner panel on the right and the inner panel on the left and the number 5, as opposed to cube, cube 2, and cube 3. This makes it easier for us later when we have a much busier scene. We can see what all the individual parts are at a glance versus having to click each one and go, oh, which one was cube 3? And then we're just going to group all of the objects. So if you select everything in the scene that you want in the group, and then hit Command G or Control G, it clips it all together into one object, and you'll notice the origin point is dead center in the middle. So we can Control C, Control V, and now we've got group 1 and 2. Rotate group 2 180 degrees and pull it directly back on the Z axis. Give it a look, make sure everything is where you want it. Perspective mode makes this easier. 360 rotate, beautiful. Now we have a stunning 2-sided logo. And we're just going to label the groups. This is, again, going to make it tidier. And then we can group them together and create one object. And then this is animatable. All right, and then you select both of these groups and group them as well. So now you've got one single 2-sided HTML badge. And then if you minimize that, you don't have to look at all the individual pieces. It's just a single selectable object. And if we raise her up a little bit, go orthographic. We just want to raise it above 0. So when we add a backdrop in, it is on the 0 mark and doesn't clip through the logo. Luckily, Spline has a handy backdrop item. If I can find it, there it is. Click and drag, and you've got a beautiful, smooth, curved backdrop. We just want to widen and lengthen everything so it doesn't clip off the edge of the camera view. Go top view so we can pull the front out. We're just going to make the backdrop a simple white. You can choose any color you want with the color picker there. And the shadow doesn't look very good here, so we're just going to move it back. All right, and when you add a camera, it is added in whichever direction you are currently looking. So the easiest way is to go orthographic front view, add the camera. And in the top right here, you switch from personal camera to the current camera that you've added, and it is perfectly front on. And it's a bit hard to see in the scene when you're in personal camera to move it around, so we'll just increase the scale to 30. And then the camera should be perspective, so it's not really far zoomed out, and then this is how it would look in real life as well. I like to change the field of view to 18, as this gives it kind of a macro feel, and move the camera back on the Z-axis so it's not so close up to the logo. Make sure the camera is 0 on the X-axis, as this is dead center in the scene. And then we're going to move it up on Y and angle it down with the X rotation. This gives it more of a 3D feel when it's animated. So to animate it, we go over to States, add in a new state, and call it Rotated 360. So all we want is to rotate the animation. And then we want the Y to be 360. This rotates it perfectly vertically. And then we go over to Events, and we just want it to be on Start, because that means we press the play button and it plays the animation. And then we want to just do a simple transition. We want linear easing, as this keeps the rotation smooth. There's no speed up or slow down at the beginning of the rotation. This is the time that it takes to rotate. We're just going to go 12 seconds because that's a nice slow animation. And target 2 is rotation 360, which is perfect, and we want an infinite loop. And now that all of those settings are selected, we are done, and you can just click play, and you've got a beautiful 3D rotating textured HTML logo.
I hope you guys all enjoyed that. A big thanks to Garrett for helping me with this video. If you want to download the bundle, or even if you have suggestions for 3D logos or other 3D objects to add into it, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.